I have this equation I talk
Yeah.
about. I say it's called energy in, benefits out.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone's about to make a decision in buying something, their brain instantly calculates it, almost on an unconscious level to some point. It's a mixture of conscious and unconscious. They say, okay, if how much energy I have to expend, which includes all the work I got to do. Let's say it's a toy, for putting like a father putting together my kid's toy, going to the store, buying it, right, and then also unwrapping it, putting it together. And then also the money I spend is stored energy. Like the money's almost like your glycogen, so to speak, right? Because you work hard, you have money in the bank that's stored energy, right? So if the benefits, perceived benefits, when you say the benefits exceed the energy, yeah, it makes sense to do that, right? So it makes sense like a positive equation. So the negative equation would be, nah, this, I have to expend too much energy and the benefits aren't enough, right? So what you're saying basically is it's kind of a universal law, even like with dieting. If you just fucking eat more shit than you're burning, I don't care what they say, you're gonna gain weight.
You're gonna gain weight, even if it's low carb, even if it's completely low
Right,
carb.
just somehow
And you can so as you can experiment with this and have like I learned this the hard way. I looked at the research, I failed trying to do everything else, and then I realized ultimately the only thing that matters when you want to get lean is create that calorie deficit. And how you do that is kind of irrelevant. The fundamental key is you create that calorie deficit. You consume enough protein to maintain your muscle because you don't want to lose muscle, right, obviously. So you have to have enough protein, then you have to do strength training to ensure you maintain muscle. Because once you're dieting, once you're in a low-calorie diet, if you're not strength training, if you don't get enough protein, your body's going to lose muscle. And so that's the key to looking really good, is to strip off fat while maintaining muscle. Right. So again, it's so then the question is, how do we make eating a calorie deficit as enjoyable as possible? How do we make this effortless? Because everyone wants to get leaner, everyone wants to look better, but very, very few people can stick to it. And so the way that I teach is you fast. And you know what? You can eat carbs, but I tend to gravitate more towards potatoes than pasta and rice because potatoes are far more filling. So it's like a cost analysis. All right, I have 600 calories I can eat for these carbs for my big dinner, or 400. What's going to fill me up the most? So you actually, your brain starts to make your decisions more wisely. As opposed to I can only eat these foods or can't eat that. And low carb can be flawed in the sense that you tend to gravitate to very high calorie foods. Like people will go snack on nuts and they'll eat 600 calories of nuts. And it's a calorie deficit game. And also what we know from research is that going too low in low carb in men, there's a drop in testosterone. So people think that you just need fat to boost your testosterone. Well, they actually did a study.
Really?
Yeah, they did a study where they had fat was controlled, and they had a high protein group, a low carb group, and they did the inverse. And the higher carb group actually had 30% more testosterone.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, when you're low carb, you tend to be catabolic, and so
your body goes into sort of self-protective mode. So why would you need to have testosterone to increase to reproduce and all this shit, right? So it's sort of a self-preservation mechanism, right?
Yeah, that's
conservation of energy, really.
Yeah, and you know what? Everyone in all this stuff, everyone has slightly different genetics. People respond better to more carbs. People respond better to a little bit lower. So you got to take this with a grain of salt. Because I meet some people that do really well on low carb. But for the vast majority, it's somewhere in the middle. Don't go crazy low carb. Don't go crazy low fat. Eat balanced and find the most enjoyable way to hit those calories. And that's when getting lean is really, really easy.
All right. So let me ask you a question. Well, how did you learn all this stuff? Did you go to school for it? You learn it by picking it up yourself, by reading, by experimenting?
So I was very into fitness as long as I can remember. When I was 6 years old, I had action figures. I wanted to look like that. When I was 10, I was doing push-ups. With my feet up on a chair because I saw my uncle doing it. I was like, this is sick. When I was 13, I lifted a weight. Fitness was just something that just drew me in. Yeah. I was excited when I watched those movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester. And so this was like my passion. And so I learned just from reading books, getting mentors. And then when it came time to, when I was 16, I started working at a gym. When it came time to go to university, I went for 1 year. I didn't even bother learning about that stuff because I was like, that would hold me back. I was just kind of reaching out to the top experts. But really what it came down to was at 19, I wanted to build this movie star body. I wanted to build like my best body ever. And I started to try things and I started to kind of realize that, wow, this fitness industry is messed up. There's so much bullshit in it. Like people have it dead wrong and you hear so many different contradicting things. And so I was kind of like, myself was confused. And I'm like, what do I actually, who's right, who's wrong? And so I started kind of putting it to the test. All right, let's do this low carb for 3 months. Let's see what happens. Let's try this. And you start to kind of screw up a lot and things aren't working, but then you find something that works. And it's kind of like that Bruce Lee approach, take that that which works and apply it. And then I started to do my YouTube videos, started blogging, started sharing stuff, started figuring things out. And my clients started getting really, really, really good results. And it was important because the fitness industry, if you ask any of your friends, no one really like especially 5-6 years ago, there were so people thought you had to eat every 2 to 3 hours because your metabolism would crash if you don't. We know that's completely wrong. When I started talking about intermittent fasting in 2011, most people were like, this is the worst thing you can do. Now everyone has a friend that's doing intermittent fasting. You go anywhere, there's someone doing it. It's gotten very common. So to answer your question, I just, it was my own like self-study and then putting it to the test and trying to get the result for myself. And I've tracked my workouts for 10, 15 years. I know what works. And then when I've worked with all my clients, we have 300,000 people on one of my programs right now. I get that feedback and I start to tweak it. But for the most part, like the stuff that I've learned that's worked for me has just crushed it for my clients.